Hello. I wanted to talk a little bit about some stuff that is on my mind tonight, just spontaneously, rather than going into one of my normal videos on teaching, because right now I think like a lot of us, we're just spent. It's February, just come through the new year here. And I don't know what it is about coming through January and then getting through February. It's like tax season, and then it's just like we're all so exhausted. But what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about Renetto. I watched a video of Renetto, and I also watched Ian Crossland. I still call him Crossland. I remember his other channel. I think he still has it, called Crossmac. I always thought of like Big Mac, but it's instead of Big Mac, it's Crossmac. It's kind of a McDonald's ring to it. Anyway, but getting into the spiritual and the reason I want to get into the spiritual in regard to Renetto. Because he's been doing a lot of videos on his own spirituality lately. And so I found it quite interesting. But I was very surprised to... actually, you know what? There was part of me that wasn't surprised, because I was like, oh, okay, he's just like everybody else in my life that I would call... Well, not I, but I mean that most people would call "quote unquote" unbelievers. But what I see in Renetto is that he is a believer. He's a believer if I ever saw one. But does he believe in the concepts of a Christian? In some ways, yes, but. Does he call himself a Christian? Not in that sense that most evangelical Christians or other denominations would call themselves Christian. But the reason I wanted to get more personal about this is because actually Renetto has been getting more personal about and more intimate about what he is saying in regard to what he believes and how he approaches the world and his worldview. And so I just thought I'd share some of my thoughts on this. Now, first off, in regard to Ian Crossland, he did a video. He hasn't done a video in a while, or maybe he has and I just didn't see it in my YouTube feed, but I'm glad to see him back, and I guess he's back here in California, I believe. Venice Beach, he said he was at. So I guess he had gone back east for a while. Now he's back here. I don't know if it's a temporary thing or if he's just on a vacation. But he said he's just relaxing in the sun. And I was thinking of that. I thought, you know what? Here I am, I live here, why can't I just have that same attitude and appreciate the weather here? So that was a big wake up, and so I have to thank him for that, because whenever I watch Ian, he's either like really intently talking about some kind of scientific process, or he's just mellow and just like being, just kind of like whatever, So he talked a little bit about economies, and he talked about energy production, like autonomous energy production. And I've really been thinking a lot about that lately. In fact, I've got some ideas in my head I'm trying to bring to fruition in regard to home ethanol production. This is not like normal process, but it's a little bit of a spin. And I'll be getting into that a little more later on, but it has nothing to do with making money or a profit. It's just about, like a lot of stuff, just prepping, making sure you're ready for, if gas prices just go incredibly high, you can produce your own ethanol, that kind of a thing. And not, like, my whole thing is I don't want to be like making a big deal about it. I don't want it to be like, oh, I got to weld this and I got to, I got to get some pressure gauges and I got to like boil this with, a hot wood stove for 4 hours. No, I'm not, I'm not into that. I'm into a turnkey process. I want to be able to make my ethanol when I have the time. And I want it not to be taking away from all the other activities in my life. I just wanted to like think about this process, work on it, and eventually come up with something that I think is going to be a nice little system. So I'll get into that, and later on, who knows, a year from now, because I'm still intently in my, my religious mode videos and my spiritual quests, as well. I do agree with Ian in that regard that, we all have to just start moving toward this autonomous way of sustaining ourselves. And, I kind of look at it from the angle of, it's not so much that I'm against the economy. I'm not against the economy. I'm all into about making money. I'm very conservative, and so, I'm not so, much against, corporations, but, I do see how, corporations cause a lot of issues, and I do see how, I see the evils on both sides. I see the extremes of liberalism, and I see the extremes of conservatism, and I see how extreme liberalism and extreme conservatism can like meld into the same thing under the corporate structure. It's like the liberals are just as corporatized as the conservatives in a lot of regards. And when I talk about that, I mean, it's just like, that's, basically the same as communism, like corporate communism, which is basically what we're all, getting like 95% of the companies, not even that, like maybe 98% of the corporations out there are just like Marxism, But, we all just sort of like, oh, well, got to go to work. And, so anyway, I do agree with Ian in that, yeah, we need to figure out how to make our own water. That's another project. Pulling water out of the air, if especially you live in like real humid climates. But even if you're not in a humid climate, you can still pull water out of the air. It just takes longer. The whole thing is the energy, and if you can use the sun, solar power, then you've got something that's running continuously, always pulling water out of the air. So, you got that, and then you grow your own food, you make your own compost, you do your own soil, you make your own ethanol, and you build your engines more efficiently, and so pretty much, after a while it's like, okay, I've got everything I need, Now that's not really viable here in an urban area yet, but I think that would be something if we could, make use of the little bit of land that we have in the urban areas in the most efficient way possible, like in growing foods. And I've been watching this guy, Growing Your Own Greens, John Kohler, and he just like, I mean, he's just like the ultimate gardener, and he's like, he's vegan, and he grows like everything, on his suburban house. So it's like really inspiring, you can do it, obviously that's time and energy, and, it's like, that's like a lifestyle, but then, maybe we're all like moving toward that again, like, because it's like, can we depend on the grid, the electrical grid, it could just like have a catastrophic failure. We could have, a terrorist attack with an electromagnetic pulse to knock out, the grid. Our grid could just fail just because it's just like in terrible condition anyway. What if gas prices skyrocket? That way, you're making your own ethanol. You got your own solar power. You're making your own food. You either have a well to get your own water, or you're pulling your water out of the air. I mean, it's all doable. It's just, it's not all efficiently put together yet. It's not, yeah. So that's, we're all tinkering. We're all doing it right here on YouTube. And we're all coming up with ways to prepare for these things. So yeah, I do agree with Ian on those things. And yeah, I need to chill because I'm all like puffy from stress. I haven't been eating any sugar. It's just, well, I have been getting my sugar through like crackers and honey, but as some of you know, I've been off of sugar since June of last year, and since that time I lost like 15 pounds just being off the sugar. And because I'm not exercising, I mean, I'm just basically doing the same thing I have been doing, like working myself like a dog, because I'm in the accounting business. So I'm a number cruncher. So anyway, I basically was watching Renetto's video today, and he's down by the stream talking a lot about, excuse me, his spirituality again. And some of you may know that I did a video a while back called The Problem with Salvation. Now, it was problem, in quotations. In other words, salvation isn't a problem. But I think it's a problem the way that most Christian churches, most evangelical churches present salvation. In other words, they packaged it, how they package it. And of course, Renetto's been going through a lot too, with struggling, with this and we're all struggling financially. Okay, we're all struggling financially, no matter how much different people keep saying, "Hey, the economy's going up. It's getting better." We know better because we look around and we see all each other here on YouTube, and we see how we're all trying to make it happen. So, yeah, I mean, it's rough, but anyway. So Renetto's been going through this financial trouble, and throughout this last year, he was having some really deeply spiritual experiences. I remember the video that he had, and it was just like things kept happening to him, and he turns around, like, and the church bells would ring at a certain time of the day. It was like, it was really like something was talking to him, something was communicating with him. You and I would say, "Oh yeah, that's God," and I think in a lot of ways Renetto's like, yeah, that's God, but not God in the way that most people would describe him. Because like Renetto himself has said, like, yeah, he's like more of an agnostic. He's called himself an atheist in the past, but that's like what I've found, like, over the years. To me, I almost think like atheism is like a fad. It's kind of like, let me try this on for a while. I'm just going to go tell people that, oh yeah, I'm an atheist. But then when it really comes down to it, it's like, I'm not. I believe in God. So now, it's like, I went through a phase where, I was raised evangelical. But, as most of you know, I've gone through a lot of denominations. Currently, believe it or not, and I might have mentioned this before, but I do attend the Catholic Church. But that is, more of a family thing. And I was drawn to the Catholic Church for a lot of other reasons. St. Francis being one of them, because he's so, wow, read his life story. I read the whole omnibus of St. Francis, and it was just like, oh, wow, okay, So, that's what, that's the church that's the Catholic Church that I perceive, is the Catholic Church of St. Francis, or, through those romantic notions, but of course, my biggest influence right now is Messianic Judaism, which, I went through, and right now I've been through a period of time where I've just sort of been away from the Messianic Judaism groups. But, once you get that worldview in you, it's like, okay, that's, pretty much what I have is now a Hebraic Judaic worldview in regard to how I approach biblical studies. And that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Some people look at me and they think that, like, I'm some kind of a theologian. Okay, now if you know the difference between a theologian, if you know what a theologian is, basically that's somebody who's like schooled in the doctrines of Christianity. Okay, that is not what I am into. I mean, I do get into doctrines. It's just that I am a biblical studies person. I don't know how to explain that. I am into biblical studies. If I had my choice, I would be a biblical studies major, and I would eventually probably get a master's in biblical studies or a doctorate in biblical studies. Not that that's not going to happen, and maybe that'll happen. But to me, I really enjoy the free study. It's like, I don't know. I'm choosing my time wisely as I get older. I'm only 42 right now, so I'm still young. But life is short. So I'm not going to spend all my time, going to school. But maybe I should. I don't know. But for now, anyway, getting back to Renetto, I like to address the fact that I have a lot of friends that are like Renetto, or maybe they believe something else. They're not Christian, but maybe they're Hindu, or maybe they're, Mormon, or maybe they're, Baha'i, or Jehovah's Witness or something. These are all like different belief systems, and what always bugged me in growing up in my church was how that there was this mental assent to different things, okay? When I say mental, it's like, okay, I believe in Jesus in my heart, okay? I believe in God in the very core of my being, okay? Because there's this thing about like, well, you know, you could say you believe in God because it says in the Bible, even the demons believe in God and they shudder, okay? So it's like, we were always taught, you know, that, oh yeah, people can say they believe in God all they want, but even the demons believe in God and they shudder. So basically, you know, it's like saying, okay, well, you could believe in God, you can believe in Jesus, but you're just having a mental, you know, assent to that belief. You're not really believing it with all your whole being, with your whole soul. You're just believing it with your mind, and you know, that's not enough to be saved. Was kind of the, you know, the message I got. Now, of course, you know, if you believe it with your whole being, you're going to believe it in your mind. And you know what? It's nobody's... There's nothing in Scripture really that says, okay, take an inventory of those you have in your community and say, okay, do you believe this? Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Because it's not about that. It's about belief in God. Now, from a Christian, Judeo-Christian perspective, that includes belief in Jesus, because the phrase Jesus is Lord is the ultimate expression of monotheism within Christianity. I can get into that. I can get into that, but basically people are like, oh, you believe in like three gods. You believe in a trinity of three gods, and 1 and 3 and 3 and 1. That makes no sense. And blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, these are all other videos. Basically what I'm saying is this. I am studying this matter. I continue to study this matter. Now, I am not a universalist in any sense. I do not believe that, boom, everyone's saved. That, at least that's how I believe right now. I don't believe that, okay? But in my mind, okay, like if I were to look at Renetto and say, oh, yeah, he believes in God, he's a nice guy. And you know what? Being nice, that has nothing to do about salvation. It has nothing to do about going to heaven. But you know what? That's the whole point. Being nice, being bad. How can I articulate this? The best illustration or the best example that I can give is when I was watching Christian programming. I was watching Channel 40 a while back, TBN, a special on out-of-body experiences, or life after death, out-of-body experiences, okay? Now, this is a very popular programming and popular shows among Christians, evangelicals, to discuss somebody who died and they had a hellish experience, out of body, hellish experience. And in the show, they're like, they find themselves sinking into darkness, and they're sinking down, and they're like, they cry out, Jesus, help me. Okay? And Jesus comes down and pulls them up out of the mire and saves them. Just like God would do, right? Now the point of the matter is, okay, believe what you want. Okay. If you're a Christian, you're going to believe that Christian's telling the truth, okay? And I think that there have been, you know, don't get me wrong, we could do a little study here, but ultimately it comes down to, do you believe the person and what they're saying about an after-death experience? Because basically it kind of lines up with what's in the Bible, you know. And I think that one of the biggest things that I have an issue with in regard to salvation, the way that it's presented, is the fact that you are only given this lifetime to accept this, this, and this. Okay? And after you die, that's it. You go one place or you go the other. But that is not the... As I study more and more, that is not the perception that I get holistically from a Jewish mindset, early Jewish mindset. And I think, you know, even a possibly, you know, Catholic mindset, they believe in the purgatory and that you can be cleansed and, you know, work your way, not work your way, but be cleansed by God's grace, you know, from his mercy. And so basically, there's a scripture that is used repeatedly within evangelicalism, and it is appointed for man to die once, and after that, the judgment. And then they say, see, look, that means that you only have this life to accept Jesus. But that is not what the scripture says. It does not say that. That's an interpretation that is being put upon that scripture. If you get into that scripture, and I probably will get into that scripture some more, and we'll go over all the details of it. As far as I know, that is the only... I mean, that is like the anchor that evangelicals are holding on to say, look, if you die without accepting Jesus right now, you are not going to be able to accept him in the afterlife. But like I said, you know, we see all these out-of-body experiences. People die. They're sinking down into hell. They say, help me, Jesus. Jesus comes down, pulls them out of hell, saves them. Okay. I think, did I make myself clear here? There's another scripture, I believe it's in one of the letters of Peter, about how when Christ died, he went down to hell. Actually, it says he went down to the spirits in prison to free them. There's stuff going on beyond this life, okay? What I mean to say is, am I saying that this means that we're not all supposed to go out and say, hey, you know, preach the gospel to every nation, talk to these people, you know, hey, Renetto, you need to go back to Jesus. You need to believe in Jesus. You know what? That would be great. That would be wonderful, Renetto, if Renetto believed in Jesus. But you know what? I have friends that they don't believe in Jesus. They believe in, you know, other stuff. And, you know, like, as far as, like, what I've been studying from a Jewish perspective, the best witness that we can give people is to live out true Torah in our own lives. We live it out. And that's exactly what St. Francis said. Preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words. In other words, just live your life. Just live your Christian life. And if somebody's going to come to the Lord, it's going to be because he called him. He calls him and he says, my sheep hear my voice. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I'm just going to say this from a purely subjective point of view. From my spirit, this is not a biblical thing. I'm just saying, over the years, my discernment has just been that God is more merciful than we can imagine. That when we get to the afterlife, there are going to be atheists there that we had no idea. We thought they were going to hell, but there's atheists in heaven. Okay? Okay. And we're going to look at them and we're going to go, oh, I thought you were an atheist. And then we're like, oh yeah, I thought I was an atheist too, but I guess in my heart of hearts, I really did believe in God. Anyway.
Hi, honey.
Hey, honey.
Did you make a video?
Yep, just finishing up. All right, guys. Have a good night. Keep seeking truth.